Rainollon here. Today is another build showcase and it's Titania Prime. So let us immediately start. Let's start with Titania first and the mods. The mods I'm using on her, I'm using Aerodynamic, Aviator, and Boral Hatred for reduced damage while airborne. This is going to give you a ton of survivability. Also, Boral Hatred gives you shield capacity, ability efficiency, which is quite nice. Fleeting Expertise for more ability efficiency lowers your duration. We have Continuity Narrow Minded to fix our duration negative, and also giving us a ton of ability duration. Narrow Minded also does reduce our range, but you don't really need range for this build. Blind Rage reduces your ability efficiency, but gives you a ton of ability strength. Same thing, Precision Intensify gives you 9% ability strength for your fort ability, and our fort ability is like the main source of DPSing and doing damage and doing everything, so this is quite good on her. And Prime Flow for maximum energy. Razorwing Blitz is an augment for her fort ability. I'm going to talk about this augment very soon. So these are the mods. Before people ask how do you have 40% reduced damage while airborne, I only have 20. Equip any polearm, doesn't matter which one, any, and equip this mod, and that gives you another 20% reduced damage, which is quite nice. So you use this as a stat stick. That's it. So these are the mods. For the Arcane Pistolier, on a headshot kill you have a 60% chance to trigger and gives you 102% ammo efficiency for 12 seconds. So your Dex Pixia can shoot forever, and it's quite nice. Arcane Velocity, on a critical hit there's a 9% chance to trigger and gives you 120% fire rate for 9 seconds. We're going to crit all the time, so you have free 120% fire rate all the time. Quite nice. Those are the Arcanes. For the stats here, health and shield are kind of low, maximum ammo is quite nice, ability duration is more than enough, efficiency is in the positive, range is negative but we really don't need it, and strength is high thanks to this, which buffs our fort ability. Everything else here doesn't need buffs at all, doesn't need a lot of ability strength. So yeah, there was the stats, the mods, the Arcane, and I think it's time for me to explain the abilities. Alright, for her abilities, the passive, Titania generates health for herself and nearby allies every time she casts an ability. What this means is when you press your abilities in a small radius, you give yourself and your allies health regeneration. How much, you ask? 4 per second. Which is Citron's passive, but hers is like 100 times better. It's just not good. It's just not good. The first ability, Spellbind. It crowd controls one enemy, which is bad, but if you use it on allies, you give them status immunity, and if you hold the ability, you give yourself status immunity, which is fine. It's pretty solid. Second ability is kind of outdated, but 50% of it is good, the other 50% isn't. So the good ones are Thorn and Dust. Thorn gives you damage reduction 50%, which is quite nice. And Dust gives you hit chance negative 50%. What this means is enemies' accuracy is reduced by 50% when they shoot you, which is solid. Full Moon and Entangle are the bad ones. Full Moon, you like, how is this bad? This gives you health, armor, and damage. Not for you, for your companions, and they really don't need this. I think the damage one is like fine, but they don't really need this at all. Entangle also reduces enemies' movement speed by 25%, which is not a lot, and yeah, I think those two are just kind of bad. The other two, damage reduction and reducing accuracy to enemies, are pretty solid. So you're going to use this on enemies, touch the spirit. For next 2 minutes you have these two buffs, and it's quite nice, giving you another huge layer of survivability. Third ability, I removed it. I don't like it at all. I think it's jank. Replace with Nourish. You can also use that as Whisper. Nourish gives you free viral, so you don't have to build viral at all, and energy economy. Yeah, it's quite nice. If you think you don't need viral and you don't need energy economy, you think energy economy is absolutely fine, Zata's Whisper is kind of nice too. It works really well with Dex Pixia, which is her fort ability dual wielding pistols. If you want to see more numbers and quicker destruction, I will say that also works. Fourth ability, Razorwing. So you turn into a pixie. You have the dual wielding pistols and the sword. The dual wielding pistols are solid, not the greatest at clearing, but really good at single target DPSing. and the swords are still bad. Not only that, you also summon a bunch of razor flies. They will help you out. They do a little bit of damage. You no longer can scale them, sadly. But what they do now is they proc 100% vulnerable on enemies when they touch. So that's a lot of damage increase. That's kind of nice. I am also using Razor Wing Blitz, which is an augment for her fourth ability. When you use any of her abilities, you give yourself 72% speed and fire rate, and it stacks up 4 times, which is a lot of speed and fire rate. She is the fastest Warframe in the entire game, and her fire rate is also ridiculously high with this, and it's quite nice to have. It's really good for this build. Not only that, when you're in the Pixie form, you also get 50% evasion. So yeah, you're really tanky with her. So while in the air, you're also very tanky with the Aerodynamic, Burl, Hatred, and Aviator, plus Dust and the other one, it's called Thorns. Plus this evasion, you're very tanky with her. So that's a really good layer of survivability she has. So that's it. I think those are the abilities. I think it's time for me to show you her weapons. Now for her exalted weapons, let's start with Dex Pixia Prime and her mods. The mods I'm using on the Dex Pixia, I'm using Galvanized Diffusion for multi-shot, Lethal Torrent for fire rate multi-shot, Planetary Cracker for critical damage, Prime Heated Charge for heat, Frostbite for cold and slash chance, Cold and heat gives you blast, Pathogen Round gives you toxin, Magnetic Might, which gives you magnetic damage and critical damage, right here, magnetic, and Galvanized Shot for stat chance and direct damage per status and target. So these are the mods. Why am I using this? Remember, I have the Arcane Continuity. Arcane Continuity, I'm going to show you right here. What it does is when you proc with ability Toxin, you also proc Corrosion. And Dex Pixia Prime are an ability. So yeah, you're going to also armor strip enemies, which is quite nice. Steady Hands to reduce your weapon recoil by 60%. This is going to help you a ton. This weapon does have recoil problems, especially when you start adding a lot of fire rate. It starts shaking ridiculously. So this fixes it entirely. The secondary enervate, in my opinion, this is the best one. Nothing comes close. Her base critical chance is extremely small. So on a hit, it increases your critical chance by 10%, which is a flat critical chance increase, and resets after 6 big critical hits. You're going to see yellow and orange crits all the time, and sometimes I see red crits, and when that does happen, you're going to see like 4 or 5 million red crit with this, and it's really funny. It's just funny. It's really good. Secondary Enervate is, like, in my opinion, the best one for her, by far. For the stats, the fire rate is really high. Magazine is 60, but she has infinite ammo. And we also do have Pistolier, so this is absolutely solid. Reload, which is, she has the battery system, so once you exhaust the magazine, you just wait a couple of seconds or a second, and it's going to fill up. Accuracy is very high. Trigger is automatic. Critical chance is really low, but we have Enervate, so this is fine. Crit multi is solid. Stash chance is fine-ish, and total damage is ridiculously high. So those are the stats, the mods, the Arcane. And I think it's time for me to show you her sword. Now let's do Diwata Prime and the mods. The mods I'm using on the Diwata Prime are using Condition Overload for melee damage per stat sniper infecting the target. This is going to help you with single target DPSing. Galvanized Steel for critical chance critical damage. Galvanized Elementalist for status damage and status chance. And Blood Rush and VP Wounds at 12x combo. That's 440% critical chance and 440% status chance. Voltaic Strike, which gives you electricity status chance, and Shocking Touch gives you electricity. This will make the electricity the highest damage type, which will complement Influence, and Quickening for attack speed and combo counter chance. So these are the mods. For the Arcane, Melee Influence on electricity status effect, we have these two. 20% chance for elemental status effect to apply to every enemy in 20 meter radius for 18 seconds, so this thing can release clear. So yeah. For the stats, the attack speed is slightly above average, the range is horrible. It is base 4, but if you were to use this weapon, you can only hit one enemy. The combo duration is 5 seconds, so I will highly recommend to use primary secondary dexterity to increase it by 15, plus 5, that's 20. Follow through is 100, which is amazing, but this thing can only hit one enemy, so it's pointless. Critical chance is bad, crit multi is, I think, average. Yeah, it's average. It's 3.2 because of the cat modifier mod. 16 stash chance, really bad, and total damage is horrible, and it's also exalted weapon for it to have this horrible total damage. Ridiculous. So those are the stats, the mods, the arcane, and I think it's time for me to show you the shards. The shards of a high command free to go is 1 green Arcane shard to increase your maximum stacks of corrosion, which is pretty solid increased damage against armored enemies. Yellow for cast speed, this will make all your abilities cast quicker. And 3 of Topaz Arcane shards to increase your maximum health. So once you kill a bunch of enemies with blast procs, your health goes from 465 to 1815, which is a ton of health. Plus you add on top of all that all of the other DRs. You're extremely tanky. You have a huge amount of health. You're really fast. You have clear. You have single target. You have status immune. It's just, you're going to feel really, really tanky, and you're going to feel really, really nice. So that's it. Those are the shards I highly recommend for you to go. And I think it's time for me to show you this build in game. So let us immediately start. And we are in. I'm up against corrupted enemies at the Void, Steel Path, the map's called mod, it's survival. I'm going to show you this build here. And as you can see, the dudes are disappearing really, really fast. Now use this. There we go, to get myself the damage reduction buff and the reducing accuracy buff. I love how they are shooting my razor flies and they are immortal. 500,000 right there, red crit. The blast is helping this weapon a ton. Thank God it has a really high base damage, and blast does love base damage. It scales with 3% of the weapon's base damage, and the base damage on the Dex Pixia is really high. So your clear is going to be like fine-ish if blast kills, but you're definitely going to proc a bunch of blasts before they detonate. All of these enemies will disappear really fast, but tankier enemies, you're going to see how much damage you will do. And the damage you do against tankier enemies is pretty solid. I did get her at EDA, and I was doing absolutely fine damage-wise. Necromechs were dying really, really fast. They were like level 400 or something. The Acolytes were also dying at a decent speed. The only thing that was killing me EDA was the void explosions. When you use abilities, you detonate a void near you. That was the only thing that was like killing me. Everything else, I wasn't dying at all to anything else. Being status immune 24/7 by recasting your first ability and also having a lot of DR while in the air and reducing enemies' accuracy, having the razor flies as a companions to like make enemies shoot them instead of you, just feels nice. So many layers of survivability. I think her damage overall is fine. I will not recommend to be greedy and go all the way towards building her for damage just to see big numbers. Just build her for survivability. Her damage is absolutely fine. The Dex Pixia is like quite powerful single targeter. Alright, that's the Dex Pixia. Time for me to show you the sword. As you can see, the follow through doesn't do anything on this. I don't know why does it have 100% follow through. That just doesn't do. You just teleport to that one enemy and you start swinging. Let me reuse all of this again. There we go. Touch this. Switch. Thorn. Touch that. Hold E, and as you can see, once I start stacking some combo, once I get some Weeping Wound stacks, to proc more electricity, to spread it with influence and all that, but it just feels bad. It's also flashbanging me a ton. Use like a black color so you don't see the flashbang. But that's like the only way you can utilize this sword. It just isn't good. Just use any other melee weapon influence setup rather than this. I think you're nerfing yourself not using the Dex Pixia, in my opinion. Alright, 10x, 11x, I'm very close to 12, and 12x, there we go. So influence is going to now constantly proc There we go, as you can see. I hope they rework this sword, just make it like something between this and Excalibur's fourth ability. Something, like anything. It's not, doesn't feel really good to shoot and use. Technically swing. Once if they ever touch influence, this is like pointless to do. I think influence is the only thing that's keeping this alive, in my opinion. Spreading it, but even with influence, just isn't really good at clearing. Not a single stat on it is good. Not a single one. Heavy Gunners, gone. Recast my first ability a couple of times. You can also see that she's really, really fast. She's my favorite Warframe to use on capture missions. You just press 4, press it once or twice your first ability, and you're going to fly so fast to the capture target, take him, kill him, and extract. One of the fastest capture missions I ever did is like 27 seconds. And I use her most of the time to farm Uko and Harpic maps for the relics when the new Warframe comes out. So that's the Acolyte, and he's gone. That's the dual, sorry, not the dual, the Dex Pixia Prime, just annihilating the Acolyte. It's really, really nice. Enervate generally made this so much better. Like, her base critical chance is small, and Enervate loves small critical chances. But yeah, this is Titania. It's solid. Let me just extract, and I'll be right back. And that's it. That's the Titania Prime build. I like it a lot. Status immune, really high defensive, very fast. Single target really good. Clear, blast helps. Feels nice. Just feels nice. Especially with the Enervate. Once they allowed you to use the Arcanes for Dex Pixia, it just feels even better. That's the build. I hope you enjoy the build. Thank you yet again everybody for watching. Leave a like, sub, and of course, see you all next time. Thank you. Goodbye.